Well, the U.S. Open is over, and the whole world is talking about our great sport, tennis. What is that, Mr. Goat? Why are they talking about tennis? Oh. Of course, Serena Williams put us on the world stage. Thanks, Serena.
I am thankful to Serena Williams.
Serena Williams.
Serena Williams.
Serena Williams.
Let's talk about Serena Williams.
Three big things on the Serena issue that we will cover in today's show. One, did Carlos Ramos, the chair umpire, ruin Naomi Osaka's U.S. Open? Two, is there a double standard in tennis? Is Serena right? Is it really sexist? And three, how we start today's show. You saw it on the thumbnail. This is America. I'll explain. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw, your humble goat host, Mr. Goat, the talking tennis cat, who is pretty happy about Novak Djokovic winning, even though he likes Federer better. Well, he was sitting there. Now he's off over there doing something. Today's show, we're going to talk all about the Serena stuff, but we will talk a little bit at the end about Novak Djokovic, Juan Martín del Potro, because after all, that did happen, and that is still important. We hope. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I've never seen so many different people that are big names in the media that, from what I can tell, know very little about tennis, talking about tennis. And to me, now, maybe the name's a little controversial on this thumbnail because, people say, this is America, and they'll point to horrible things that are usually, most of the time, I'm sure, real problems, but probably not a big thing that's happening to everyone on a regular basis all over the country, right? Can we agree on that? To me, This is America is really the nature of the media and politics merging into one. Politics, a long time ago, started trying to find its way into the hearts and minds of people around the country by becoming part of the culture. You see politics more in sports and pop culture and the media and the movies and the music more than ever. And maybe that's working out for them. Maybe they're winning some people over to their causes and their beliefs, the political parties are, by doing this. But I don't think it helps the culture to bring the politics in. And I feel like a lot of people, maybe Cat Adams, president of the USTA, maybe Serena Williams now, are trying to make things political. I don't think making tennis more political is helping grow the sport or make it more popular. So to me, when I say this is America, what I'm talking about is we see people from both sides of the media, of the political media, come swooping in to our great sport to use it as an example to further their own political agenda, their own cause, to rally people to their own beliefs. This is potentially really bad for tennis. This hurts tennis. This makes people think, oh, tennis, that's the sexist sport. I hate that. And a lot of these media people, they don't care about tennis. They don't care what happens to tennis. They don't care about who has to pick up the pieces. They don't care about the fact that there's basically like a civil war beginning within the governing bodies of tennis. We'll get to that in a second. But first, let me just play a little montage I've made of literally like every kind of person you can possibly think of in the media talking about this Serena Williams stuff.
That is above and beyond and way out of line with what is happening in tennis, especially men's tennis. Serena was absolutely right about that, and I think that's one of the big takeaways in this controversy and growing scandal. It does seem to be, and I'll just say it doesn't seem to be, it is a double standard.
Now, she throws a racket, you got to do what you got to do. You can't do that. That's a clear violation. Nothing against anyone. You're just not allowed to do it.
Even though tons of male players do it all the time.
Okay,
I've been there. That has happened to me. I know that's happened to me, and that's what I related with, where I knew a man was responding and thinking I was being emotional, and my male peer was the one who was simply being passionate about something, and you feel that you are treated differently.
It was sexist. McEnroe said it was sexist. He said you don't see that happening to Nadal. There are players who have broken their things and haven't had the same kind of issue.
But why? She loses 6-2, 6-3. The referee didn't have anything to do with it. She just got beat. But see, just like Hillary, she didn't get beat. They cheated. The referee, the Russian, somebody.
So there you go, all the way from CNN to Rush Limbaugh. Everyone has an opinion on this and doesn't necessarily even fully know what they're talking about. A lot of these people, you can just tell listening that they didn't watch the tennis match.
I didn't. I didn't watch this.
Definitely weren't there, but you didn't have to be there to figure out what was going on. But they didn't watch it. They saw the highlights. They read the headline, and they're running from there. let me break it down as best I can and be to the point. Okay. Naomi Osaka on the women's side of this tournament has been the whole story. She handed out a double bagel. Again, it's becoming increasingly rare in tennis as the lower levels are starting to catch up with the higher levels. It seems like everyone trains so much harder. Everyone has multiple coaches, it seems like, even as you go down the rankings. The field is stronger than it's ever been, and you don't see as many double bagels as we used to. And so Naomi Osaka is throwing out bagels at this tournament. She's just destroying everyone who comes in her path, and she keeps it up in the first set against Serena. I believe she was up 5-1 pretty quick in that first set. She wins it in a little over 30 minutes. Oh, here comes Mr. Goat to join us. Don't step on the button for the microphone, please. Thank you, Mr. Goat. What do you want to say? Mr. Goat says the only person who's owed an apology is Naomi Osaka. Brilliant for Mr. Goat. So back to the summary. The first set, Naomi Osaka wins in a little over 30 minutes. She's clearly outplaying Serena by a lot. Serena is not playing her very best, but she's definitely not playing bad. You know, you could say Serena's playing pretty well for her, and Osaka is playing better. In the second set, it would seem that, you know, Serena's making a push. Serena breaks Osaka and gets broken right back, but she gets the warning before she breaks. I believe it was either 1-all or 1-0 as Serena gets the coaching warning. Now, this is where I agree with Serena. We all know, if you watch tennis, that every umpire has some leeway where they're allowed to use their own discretion to make these calls. And a lot of umpires don't call the coaching because, like Serena's coach, who admitted before Serena could even sit down in the press room, and she was pretty upset in her presser when she said, "I don't know why my coach said that. I'll have to talk to him." But he admitted he was attempting to coach her. He said, "I don't know if she saw my hand signals, but I was trying to signal to her to move in." We've seen him doing that. Serena says it's a thumbs up. But really, the thing that he got called on was saying, you know, move into the net, Serena. Which makes sense. We know the U.S. Open's been playing extremely slow. So if you're the Del Potro with the more power, you know, we could argue Serena's got, even though Osaka, her power is pretty much matched Serena on power. So Osaka really can blast the ball, but she's moving a lot better than Serena. Movement is key. We saw it with Djokovic and Del Potro. Del Po's very best forehands, Djokovic could pretty much track them all down, and a big part of that is because the USTA, they slowed down the courts. It's been said that they thought it would help American players.
Intentionally, the courts are playing just a touch slower this year.
So that was intentional?
It was.
Okay. Why did you want to do that?
We just felt that based on a lot of feedback we'd been getting from coaches and players that we had reached a threshold where we were getting just a little bit too quick.
But anyway, so the court's slower. Naomi Osaka being able to move better than Serena while still hitting power that's pretty close to what Serena is capable of hitting, that really hurts Serena. So when Serena gets the coaching warning, it's unfortunate, but it's just a warning. Nothing happens to you. Now, you know that if you're planning on throwing a temper tantrum or smashing a racket or freaking out, you're going to lose a point later. Maybe that can bother you, but I would think Serena should have been able to know, okay, it's just a warning, let's move on. Now, a lot of people said Serena didn't know it was a warning because she went up there and said, "I'm not a cheater. I'd rather lose than cheat," which I agree with. So they have allowed limited coaching in smaller tournaments in the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, and Serena and Venus never. They're allowed to. In between sets, you can have your coach come out and talk to you. They've never had that. They don't need it. They're from the old school. These girls started playing on the Pro Tour in the 90s. Like I said, they're from the old school. They don't need coaching. They probably don't believe in it. So I don't doubt, and I don't think Carlos Ramos doubted Serena. She's not a cheater. The point is, the rule says you're responsible for your coach's actions. If your coach is trying to signal you and you don't see it, it doesn't matter. That's an infraction. Everyone seems to be upset that there's no consistency on this. This whole tournament, there's no consistency on anything. We got the heat rule sometimes. We got one umpire coming down from the chair, Muhammad Leone, to talk to Kyrgios and give him basically a pep talk and say, "I like you. Don't tank. I'm going to have to call you on tanking. Just try hard." That goes to say something for Ramos. After knowing that had happened recently, the last thing he wanted to do was be seen as giving Serena a pep talk to try to calm her down. So let's not forget that for the people who say he should have gave her more soft warnings and let her vent more and try to, talk her out of it. So when Serena gets the warning, it could have stopped there and it should have stopped there. But she goes up there, she speaks her mind, she doesn't get a point penalty. And one of my things I have on here is about the doubled standard. We're going to look at that closer later. We're going to try to look at some examples of men misbehaving on the court. But I will say this, from my experience watching tennis, yeah, we do see men do what you could argue is worse, or at least similar behavior to what Serena did. But usually when they get the warning, they drop it because they know what comes next. Just as I'm sure some people are saying, oh, Serena might not know the rules. Come on, she's been playing like 20 years. I think she knows how it goes, that warning, point penalty, we take a game from you. That's why you see the men, they'll be freaking out when they get the warning. They'll go up there and they'll still have a little bit more to say usually, but then they drop it. And Serena, she got the warning. She goes up there. She speaks her mind. I'm not a cheat. I'd rather lose than cheat. All the stuff she said right there. I am a mother. I have a daughter. I drive a Dodge Stratus.
I drive a Dodge Stratus.
All that stuff. She gets to vent a little bit. Nothing happens. He lets her go back and play. She breaks Naomi Osaka. She has the lead. Osaka breaks back. That's when Serena smashes the racket. I know Serena's finals, I think 2007 was the last time Serena was in a Grand Slam final. I might be wrong. Comment below if I'm wrong. She was down a set and came back to win it. But outside of the finals, we've seen Serena down a set in tons of matches and come back to win it in 3. So there is an argument. Without taking the game away from her, maybe she wins this match. I don't think so because the court's just so slow. It favors the ability to move and play defense like we saw with Delpo and Djokovic. By the time she gets broken, smashes the racket, point penalty. Don't think this point penalty was a big deal at all. Every time people act like, oh, players throw their rackets all the time and nothing happens. No, they always get the warning. It's extremely rare that you see a racket smash and no warning. I can't remember the last time I saw that. What people might be confused with is violently throwing the racket down. It seems like if you don't break the racket, you get no warning. If the racket breaks, you get a warning. That's pretty much the way the rule has worked with all umpires for years and years now. So I don't think that point penalty, I don't think we can argue Serena didn't know she had the warning. Serena knew she had the warning, especially by the time she got the point penalty. She has to realize the warning stuck. And I don't know why she would think you can overturn a warning forever, even with McEnroe. McEnroe would always call out the supervisor, who's, I guess, in charge of the umpire, but not really, because every time this happens, you saw it with Serena. We saw it in 2009. The supervisor comes out, and the same Brian Early, and I'm not sure what the lady's name is, but you see in the clip, check it out, in 2009, they come out. It's the same people. They've aged a little, but they look pretty much exactly the same.
That.
Correct.
And now Brian Early, in his 39th year of working with the U.S. Open, his last year as a referee, is involved in something incredibly ugly.
They never change anything. They just back the umpire. They might listen to you vent a little, but they can't change it. They never change it for Mac. They never change it for anything. You get the warning, you get the point penalty. You can't take it back. Once it happens, it stays. Everyone knows this. Serena has to know this. But the point penalty didn't matter because Naomi Osaka holds, I believe, in 41 seconds, she holds serve. So she's up 15-love, but what? So she holds like Roger Federer in like 59 seconds if she doesn't get the free point? I don't think that she was going to lose that. All tournament long, anytime Naomi Osaka, when she's not bageling you and just destroying her opponents, anytime Naomi Osaka found herself in a little trouble throughout this tournament, she pretty much always bounced back, and she did it right there. She breaks to get back to 3-all. She holds serve to get to 4-3, and this is where we see Serena. We've seen it before. When Serena's being outplayed, 2009, Kim Clijsters, 2011, Sam Stosur. When Serena's being outplayed by an opponent who's just having a great day, having one of their best performances of their life, you could argue, in all 3 of these matches, Serena tends to get ugly. I mean, you can argue that she bullies referees. This was a male referee this time, but the last 2 times I can think of, they were female referees. And some of these things Serena says, check this out. I've found some clips of Serena. There's a theme with Serena. This isn't the first time she said, "Don't talk to me."
Well, then don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Don't pick on me. I'm sick of you picking on me. In fact, unless you're giving me a warning, don't talk to me.
This isn't the first time Serena has demanded an apology. You owe me an apology.
When are you going to give me my apology? You owe me an apology. Say it. Say you're sorry.
A scrappy performance, a few more unforced errors there for you, a couple more double faults.
Oh, I think that's a very negative thing to say. Are you serious?
Just my observation.
Okay, well, you should have been out there. That wasn't very kind. You should apologize. Do you want to apologize?
I just did, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a great performance. I played well.
And how about Serena borderline threatening the umpire in 2011, who, we got to point it out, Serena's very big and strong. The little Asian ball lady in 2009, or line judge.
Serena's night, isn't it?
If she gets a warning, it's point penalty, game, set, match.
I didn't say I would kill you. Are you serious?
I don't.
She just threatened
I never complained. Wow.
I can't believe she's turning it around and making herself a victim.
What a loser.
She's going to have to be very careful.
Or am I going to get violated for water? Really, don't even look at me. I promise you, don't look at me. Because I am not the one. Don't look my way.
You know, as umpire, she appears to be kind of small. I feel like if this was a man doing this stuff, they would maybe argue like, look, he's intimidating this little female umpire with his big muscles and his size towering over her. You know, that's sexism. He's bullying her. He's threatening her. I mean, honestly, I think Serena could probably beat up Carlos Ramos. Don't you think? No knock on Serena. I admire Serena's power. She could probably knock Carlos Ramos out. So she tears into him for a long time. You can't tell. It's hard to hear what he says. He's a soft-spoken guy, I guess. But for all we know, he could have been trying to comfort Serena or at least give her the soft warning, like, look, just let it go, Serena. Just let it go. I don't want to have to keep giving you warnings, and I don't want to keep going to the rule book on you. Let me just bring this one up right here. Because I showed you in the montage earlier. We see this. We hear this. The question people say has been, some people will say there's no double standard because look at all these men who got a warning. And then the question we always hear from people who want to argue this is, but did they get a game or a point penalty? The answer is, you know, sometimes they do go on. They get the warning and they keep going. But I don't think any of them have gone longer. I found one example that we'll look at in a little bit. We'll look at a highlight reel of examples of men behaving badly on the tennis court with the umpire and getting warnings. And what you'll usually see is, they carry it on. They say, what, you got to be kidding me. You're giving me a warning? What did I get a warning for? Blah, 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 blah. And they go on and on and on. But they don't go on as long as Serena went. That's the biggest thing to me, is that Serena really dragged this out and made it feel personal. Serena's pointing the finger at him. I'm sorry, but when you point your finger at someone, you can argue that it's kind of threatening. At least it makes it more confrontational. You could definitely say that. And just the nature of the way she went after him. You're a liar. You're a thief. I got to go to the rule book right here because a lot of people, I mean, it would just be crazy not to show people this. Here's the rule. Under Article 3, Section P, verbal abuse is defined as, this is what she got called on. The third infraction was verbal abuse of umpire, game, penalty. And that really made it impossible for Serena to come back the way Osaka was playing. Of course, Serena holds serve for 4-5. Osaka holds serve for 6-4. It's over. Without the game penalty, it's 4-4. If Osaka still holds no problem like she did, it's Serena serving 4-5 after another changeover, where maybe she would have berated the umpire and got a game penalty then. Then it would have been over right there. Just like with 2009, Kim Clijsters, she only gets a point penalty. Big problem. It was match point. She had to win that point to continue the match. Point penalty taken away from her. That's it. Game, set, match. Just worked out against her that time. Here's the rule again. Verbal abuse is defined as a statement about an official, opponent, sponsor, spectator, or other person that implies dishonesty or is derogatory, insulting, or otherwise abusive. Again, a statement about an official that implies dishonesty or is derogatory, insulting, or otherwise abusive. You're a thief, you're a liar, and a thief. That's what I believe the exact words Serena said. You're a liar and a thief. Does that imply dishonesty towards the use their words, towards the official? Absolutely. Carlos Ramos, totally by the book. You can argue that he didn't use his discretion the way a lot of people would have wanted to. So let's go to my first thing here. So that's the story. I already said it, but I'll say it one more time. So 5-3 now. Serena holds. 5-4. Osaka serves. 6-4. Game over. Game, set, match. So one thing I hear from people is Ramos ruined it for Osaka. He ruined it for that little girl. I totally disagree. Serena ruined it. And like what Mr. Goat said, if anyone is owed an apology, it's Naomi Osaka. On top of that, Carlos Ramos, again, Muhammad Laoni, and I've heard people say, like, Laoni gave Kyrgios a pep talk and nothing happened to him. Not true. Even Roger Federer said that was totally uncalled for and was very critical in his press conference after, I guess it was after his third round win, before he was going to play Kyrgios. And he said, you can guarantee that's not going to happen again. Pretty much everyone was extremely critical of Muhammad Laoni. And as far as I know, he definitely didn't umpire any big matches for the rest of the tournament. They relegate him to the smaller courts, smaller matches, so he wouldn't be on TV. Again, comment below if I'm wrong on that. Maybe he did a fairly big match and I missed it. But for all I know, he was limited to doubles only after that. So Carlos Ramos does not want to be seen as giving Serena a pep talk, because think about what happens. If Serena goes on and on and on, and Naomi Osaka breaks down, let's say Naomi Osaka, or let's say it happens the same way, but Serena comes all the way back and beats her after the crowd is booing, and it feels like there's no way. I know the crowd is not booing Serena, and they're not booing Naomi Osaka, but tell that to Naomi Osaka, especially in the moment, because the crowd is booing the umpire, but it doesn't matter. The crowd is also cheering very loud for Serena. They're still cheering when Osaka hits a great shot, but they're cheering louder when Serena wins a point. So it's hard for Osaka not to feel like the crowd is now turned against her. Imagine if she lost. Another thing I left off this list that I hear a lot from people is, well, Serena fixed it all in the trophy ceremony. She was a class act and handled it the best way possible.
Serena is a really passionate person, right? And so I thought the bigger picture is the way she handled in the end, giving the joy back to Osaka. That's the big takeaway here.
We may end up with a positive here. Serena's sportsmanship after the fact in that ceremony was exactly pitch perfect, exactly what you would hope and expect from Serena.
Not true again, because what else could she have done? At that moment, and probably before that, she had to realize that she caused a big problem and was, like I said, she owes Naomi Osaka an apology because she created this big spectacle in Osaka's biggest moment. And we know, Serena knows, it wasn't sexism. It wasn't that she was so upset about the coaching call. I'm sure she was mad about it. But the biggest thing we know was that she was flustered by the opponent. Serena was struggling to win the match, was really struggling, was having the match ripped out of her hands. I always think of a tennis match like that scene from Saving Private Ryan. Remember that scene where the one American soldier went to get extra ammo, and he's in the staircase, and he hears his friend in this struggle for his life, right? They're fighting to the death by hand at this point, and I believe he's trying to stop him from pushing a knife into his chest. Gruesome stuff, right? So I think of tennis as that's what's happening on the court. Sometimes players get removed from what's in their head. They're far away from the action sometimes because it's like fight or flight. How do you deal with these things? And a lot of players, I feel like, they turn into the guy in the staircase who's so scared he's just frozen. He could run in there and try to save his buddy's life. You can run out there and play courageously and try to save the match, but it's so nerve-wracking sometimes in these tennis matches. It can get so mental that you're just overwhelmed by fear, anxiety, just feeling like there's nothing you can do to win, whatever it feels like. What if Naomi Osaka went into total freak-out choke mode and lost? How would that trophy ceremony have been then? I think it would have been even more awkward. Serena would have really owed her an apology then, and a lot of people complained about McEnroe and said every time he went off, it was usually because they were playing great. They were finally finding the rhythm, and playing a good match, and then McEnroe had to cause a giant spectacle, and they totally lose their rhythm, and it was the most frustrating thing ever. You've heard a lot of players say that's what it was like to play McEnroe at times. So anyways, my point is with all that, Serena did the very minimum of what she could have done. She tells the crowd to stop booing. Like, what? She was not going to tell the crowd to stop booing? That was awful. It was the most awkward trophy ceremony any of us have ever seen. It was a horrible moment in tennis. It was like the worst ever. So don't try to tell me that Serena is some kind of freaking hero because she told the crowd, please stop booing my opponent. She won. Fair and square. The whole reason why anyone is thinking in that stadium that this was unfair and Osaka only won because we got to put an asterisk beside it because Serena got cheated is because of Serena's actions and the way she turned it into, this is sexism, this is sexist, this wouldn't happen to a man. Anyways, enough about that. So let's look at the sexism double standard. Here's a montage I've put together of men misbehaving and getting warnings, and maybe in some cases not getting warnings.
Hey, ref, you're ridiculous. Get out of the freaking court, man. Why don't you get out of the court, man? I am so pissed because I didn't say anything. You know what you're doing.
De menigte kiest wezenlijk het hazenpad.
Come on, this is incredible. This is fun. Come on, this is my job. Why do I always do this?
But it was close. Near sideline. The ball was called out.
He was talking to me. Yeah, come on. I wasn't allowed to challenge like after 2 seconds. The guy takes like 10 every time.
Well, it's out, so Federer will be at least relieved. But
Do you have any rules in there? Stop showing me the hand, okay? Don't tell me to be quiet, okay? When I want to talk, all right? I don't give a shit what he said. I just say he's waiting too long. I was not allowed to challenge like 2 matches ago after 1 second. He takes 10 seconds. Oh, you guys got rules, right?
40.
No! No! No way! Look at it! Come on, please, look at it! Once! Once! Look at it! Worst player ever in the world! What are you doing? Did you see the ball? You're so bad!
They should have started like on that warning. Game set.
Ever! Do you know what you did? Do you know what you did? Do you know what you did? You're horrible! What do you want to talk about? You're the worst ever! They're being Now, you know to call that, right?
He cannot believe it. Twice in that game.
Novak, he called it real. Both times he called it late. He called it late. The ball had already passed you, then he called it late. Both times. It was a late call.
No mistakes whatsoever.
Second stop, please.
Answer my question!
Code violation, verbal abuse, point, Mr. McEnroe.
The mark right here.
Oh, just calm down.
There's a mark right here.
Just calm down. It's not a reason to stop like this.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yeah, it is. You're not showing me a mark.
Stop this. What are you doing here?
You're not showing me one mark.
Yeah, what?
For what? Because I challenge a mark? Because I challenge a mark? That's why he's giving me
advertisement. Just being aggressive with me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hurt your feelings. I apologize. I hurt your feelings. Sorry.
Now, ironically, one of the first people, big-name male tennis players, to tweet in support of Serena was Andy Roddick. And to me, the most recent, we're not going to look at stuff, although McEnroe got in plenty of trouble in the 80s and 90s. He's been defaulted. He's been thrown out the 1990 Australian Open. So don't tell me that these guys never get in trouble, but only the women do. But to me, this is the worst example where if I'm going to side with Serena on this one, because I do feel like I don't think it's a sexism double standard, but I think this umpire didn't do his job right. And that's the problem. Every umpire does it a little different. How closely do we follow the rules? This whole tournament, the shot clock, total joke. Sometimes they just turn it off randomly before it runs down. Sometimes it runs down, they call the player. Sometimes they don't call the player. There was no consistency on the calling with the shot clock. No consistency with the roof. Some matches, they're going to close the roof to make it more palpable. Why didn't they close the roof for Roger and Millman? That was like the worst weather of the whole tournament. They released a statement saying there's no rule for bad weather or for hot weather to close the roof, but then they closed the roof for the men's final. It was raining a little, I guess. But still, everything's wishy-washy. The coaching call, we never know who's going to call coaching and when, but it doesn't excuse for Serena for dragging it way out. So first person, ironically to me, Andy Roddick was the first person to say, this is terrible, worst umpiring I've ever seen, I believe is what he tweeted. He later tweeted, hey, upon further, after thinking about it, Roddick kind of took it back and said, Ramos is doing his job. He could have done a better job, and Serena could have done a better job too. So check this out. This is Andy Roddick, and to me, he is dragging this out way too far, and he's calling the umpire an idiot. He's being very insulting to the umpire, making it personal. He should have got called on this. He should have been getting the point penalty, maybe even a game penalty if he kept going.
Do your job. Do your job. How do you tell? Can you hear? Do you have ears? Do you have ears? I've been hearing it for 3 seconds. Do you have ears? Connected to your head? Use them. You can use them if you want. All right? Good.
How do I know? You can't hear him yelling? You want me to send you a fax or an email so you can check it out, or what?
1 foot from the ball. I'm going to speak very slowly so that you can understand me.
Manuel Joseph in the chair, and Roddick is incensed because he's
the ball. You're an idiot. You don't believe it. You're lying to yourself. I mean, seriously, does he mean like you have to be like a second grade dropout to be an umpire? You go to school until you were 8 years old? I think you quit school before you were 10. Stay in school, kids, so I'm not being an umpire.
Gotta get the crowd involved in this argument between...
So, before we move on, the last thing I want to say is, if you're a feminist, because to me, Serena's hurting her own case. If you're a feminist, or you're a person who believes that there's sexism, that there's a double standard in tennis, this is not the one you want to go after. This is not the one evidence you want to hold up, because I think it undercuts your argument. If Serena really cares about fighting for justice and for women's rights and for equality on the tennis tour for the two sexes, I think she's hurt her own case. She's hurt the whole movement, and I've seen lots of people tweet stuff like this. Even Martina Navratilova put out a statement that pretty much says the same thing, but this is the first thing I thought. If you really care about this, Serena, don't use that to cover yourself. It feels like she's not fighting in this instance for women's rights and equality on the tennis tour. She's using women's rights and equality on the tennis tour as an issue, as a cause. She's using it as an excuse to defend herself and her own awful behavior. With that said, I love Serena Williams. I was a really big Serena fan until the 2009 incident in 2011, where she basically threatened the umpire in 2011, a little woman. She says, who was a woman who was much smaller than Serena in stature. And she basically says, if you see me coming down the hallway, you better go the other way. You better walk the other way, which to me, if someone said that to me in high school, I would assume that that means they're going to fight me if I don't avoid them. So finally, we get a few minutes before we go. My supercomputer, check it out. After the semifinals, the computer moved. Djokovic went up half a point. Delpo went down half a point. Delpo was still predicted by the supercomputer to win because of his stats, but I knew it. I knew it as soon as I saw the first set against Rafa, where I felt like Rafa's probably going to win this, actually, even though the supercomputer said Delpo was overwhelming favorite. And it's for one big reason. The court was just too slow. Defense had too much of a boost from this court. Defensive capability was rewarded more than offensive capability. That's the story of the tour. They're slowing down courts everywhere. They're slowing down Wimbledon. Roger Federer, arguably the greatest attacking player in the history of the sport, or at least in the modern game history, the recent open-era history. Roger Federer, his best shots kind of neutralized a little bit by this court, especially in the super humid conditions against Millman. Couldn't hit a ball past the guy, had to hit a million drop shots and come to the net. Del Potro, his best shots, remember he had set point before he won the first set in the tiebreaker, because essentially Nadal was already hurting, and Delpo made him move so much that it wore him out. He had to retire because of the knee. But remember, Delpo hits this big shot on set point when I guess he served for the first set against Nadal, and Rafa tracks down like the biggest forehand in the corner. Rafa basically hits it from the crowd and ends up winning the point. And that's kind of when I knew this court is just too slow. It's so slow that even Delpo, who arguably has the biggest ground stroke in the history of the game, his forehand is more powerful than any forehand or backhand we've ever seen before. Maybe Fernando Gonzalez's forehand is pretty close.
And that one was clocked at 120 miles an hour.
Stephanie leads 4 games to 2.
Ouch! And he hit the bullseye.
If his best shot and Rafa can get it pretty much every time, if he sets it up just right and opens the court, yeah, no one's going to get it even on the slowest court in the world. But for the most part, Rafa could track it down. I knew right then, maybe Rafa didn't have the legs or the knee left in him to do it this time. But Djokovic, no problem. I knew he was going to be all right. I knew the fact when they close the roof and the air conditioning kicks in, he was going to feel great out there. Although if it was super humid conditions again, it would have hurt Djokovic. Probably would have hurt Delpo even more. So he would have just, practically died out there trying to overcome Djokovic's defensive strength. But hey, congratulations to Djokovic. I don't want to take away from him at all, because the thing Djokovic has done so well is, he's come up playing Roger and Rafa. He had to get ahead of Roger and Rafa somehow. These guys who are just so good. And all three of these guys owe each other a big thank you, because they've made each other great. All three of them have made each other better players because they've tried to pursue excellence and be better players so that they can defeat each other. Djokovic has had to out Roger in some tournaments. He's had to out Rafa in other tournaments. We can make a case that Roger is still better at the overall attacking game than Djokovic, even on Djokovic's best day. But what I've noticed is Djokovic has really mastered this new style of tennis where it's like the best of both worlds. Look at this graphic. This is, I think, from ESPN. This graphic shows where Federer's footwork patterns are moving into the court to cut off the ball. Rafa is the total opposite, moving backwards in the court to get to any ball, to contain your attacking tennis. And Djokovic is a straight line in the middle because he does both. He does both so effectively. And a lot of people are saying that maybe Djokovic is going to be the GOAT now, and that's what we'll talk about in our next video. Don't know when we'll see you, but sometime this week we'll talk all about that. See ya!